Good morning, students. Today I am going to continue the chapter The Establishment of the British Company. In previous video I explained you about the English, that the English East India Company was formed in 1600 through a charter signed by Queen Elizabeth I, granting permission to trade with India. Then I explained you about French. The French formed French East India Company to compete with the British and the Dutch. It came later in 1664. Now, today I will explain you about mercantism and colonial rivalry. The struggle for monopoly trade with India eventually led to the conversion of India into a colony under the most successful of the European powers, that is the British. The very idea of the policy of mercantism was to conserve the resource of its own country and fulfill the needs and requirements of the people through the import of the resources of the colonies. The East India Company and other European companies first began their trade with India to exchange their goods with Indian goods. And for this, they set up trading centers at various places. The trading companies used to buy Indian products at very cheap rates and sell them in world market at a very high prices as possible. Another major objective of colonialism at this stage was to directly appropriate and take over the revenues of the state through political control. It was only through political control that the objective of monopolism of trade was going to be achieved. This next stage of development is termed as the era of free trade or the era of industrial capitalism. During this period, India became a subordinate trading partner of Britain as the trade between the two countries was unequal. As a dependent colony, it produced supplied raw materials and food grains to Britain and at the same time served as a market for finished products manufactured in Britain. Britain started exporting factories produce goods to India. India produced agriculture raw materials through traditional methods using manual labor. This resulted in low productivity and low wages. India played a crucial role in the development of British capitalism. During this stage and absorbed 10 to 12% of total British exports and nearly 20% of Britain's textile export during 1860 to 1880. The period after 1858 saw foreign investment on large scale in India and international competition for controlling the colonies started. The end of Britain's industrial supremacy with the spread of industrialization in other European countries led Britain to make special efforts to consolidate its control over India. The new capitalism countries had huge capital which they wanted to invest in colonies like India. The added advantage in India was that labor and raw material were readily and cheaply available, and India also provided a ready market. The nations could reap immediate benefits from their investment in goods like indigo. Now, the rise of the British. By the early 18th century, the Portuguese and the Dutch lost their important position in trade between India and the West to the British and the French. The companies of England and France came to dominate Indian trade with Europe. Each tried to control the markets where they brought the goods and to reduce the influence of the other. This led to Anglo-French rivalries between the two nations, both in India and in Europe. Gradually, both tried to control not only the trade but also extended their political influence in India. Eventually, the British emerged victorious in the struggle for political supremacy after fighting a series of wars with Indian rulers as well as the French. The first of such wars were the Carnatic Wars. Now, the British in Bengal. Now, how British wants to control the Bengal. Bengal was the richest Indian provinces during that time. Because of the reason, East India Company began to trade in Bengal and established their first English factory on their banks of river Hooghly in 1651. Other trading ports were also built in Machilipatnam, Agra, Ahmedabad, Madras, Patna. The company also built a fort around the settlement in 1696. Its corrupted Mughal officials into giving the company zamindari rights over 3 villages. 2 years later, it also convinced the Mughal Emperor Aurangzeb to issue a farman allowing the company the right to trade duty-free. The officials of the company who were engaged in private trade also stopped paying duty on their private trade. This caused an big loss of revenue to Bengal. Now, how trade led to battles? The big loss of revenue became the reason of confliction between the company and the Nawabs of Bengal, which became intensified in the first half of the 18th century. The Bengal Nawabs maintained their power and autonomy after the death of Aurangzeb. Bengal was ruled by Murshid Quli Khan, Sahajuddin, Alivardi Khan and Sirajuddin Daulah. These rulers were strong in many ways. They refused to allowance the company concessions. They demanded large tributes for the company's right to trade. They refused the right of the company to mint coins. They stopped the company from extending its fortification. They claimed that the company was lacking the Bengal government of large amounts of revenue. Company damaged the authority of the Nawab in many ways. It was refusing to pay taxes. It wrote disrespectful letters. It tries to humiliate the Nawabs and his officials. But the company on its part declared that the unfair demands of the local officials were running the trade of the company. According to it, trade could flourish only if the duties were removed. It was convinced to increase trade. It had to enlarge its settlements. The company brought up villages and re-established its forts. Now you have to write question and answer in your fair copy. What was the job of residents appointed by the company? What was the policy of the doctrine of lapse? Who was Raina?